Welcome to the Commonwealth Policy Center's Candidate Forum. I'm your host, Richard Nelson. Joining us for this segment is State Representative for House District 78, Mark Hart. This district covers part of Boone, parts of Campbell, part of Kenton, and all of Pendleton counties. Mark, welcome to the forum.
Thank you so much for having me.
And for the record, we did invite your challenger. Democratic challenger chose not to join us. So instead of punishing you, we decided to go ahead with the forum, and you will have the next 20 minutes to make a case for your reelection bid. Mark, you have served in the state legislature since 2017. You were part of that historic Republican majority that won in 2016, the first Republican majority in the state house in almost 100 years. Here's my first question. When you first got in as a state representative for House District 78, was Frankfort what you expected?
That's kind of a loaded question. I don't think it's ever what we expect.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it was and it wasn't. You know, I'd been to Frankfort before for different things throughout my career. When we first came in, it was a little overwhelming because with us taking the majority, and there were so many of us, we went the first probably four weeks or so without offices. We were sharing space. It seemed a little chaotic and a little overwhelming, but it was exciting too because, like you said, it's been almost 100 years since the Republicans had taken the majority, so we were all excited and ready to get to work. And we hit the ground running with some major legislation passed just within the first 3 to 5 days of session.
Very good. So you've served for 3 terms now, and actually 4 terms, going back to 2016. You're up for a 5th term. In the first, in these first several years you've served in Frankfort, what are 1 or 2 or 3 issues that you've supported that you're most proud of?
Well, definitely when we first got started, the right to work legislation, it was one of the big ones. You know, I get criticized a lot of especially by union members because you know I was a union member. I was a member of the IFF, the firefighters union, when I was a firefighter, and they just felt like I was turning my back on the unions when I supported it. But I'm also, you know, I believe people have the right to choose what they want to, and unions shouldn't force anybody to do anything more than the government should be allowed to force anybody to do anything. So I was very proud of that. The right to work legislation that we were able to finally get passed. I like to tell the story because I'm good friends with former Representative Joe Fisher, who filed the same abortion bill for 20 years, but on the 20th year we got it passed. So you know, his due diligence and consistency and resolve to get that accomplished just is an example of when you've got good legislation, you don't give up on it. So I was really excited to pass that, and I'm excited for what we're beginning to do with the state income tax. You know, eliminating the state income tax, putting more money back in people's pockets. We haven't quite got there yet, but we have got it reduced down to 4%, and we're going to be going down to 3.5% at this next session. So,
very good. Have you seen results? I want to talk about the state income tax for a moment here. There was a lot of criticism early on when it was announced that eliminating the state income tax would be a priority of the Republican-controlled legislature. Some have said it's going to hurt the poor, especially as the tax burden would be shifted towards sales tax. Some have said we're going to lose resources, state resources. People pointed to Kansas. They tried to eliminate their income tax, and they did not prepare and plan accordingly. Mark, were those criticisms and concerns warranted regarding the elimination of Kentucky's state income tax?
I don't think so. I mean, if you want to look, you mentioned Kansas. You know, if I remember their legislation, correctly, they eliminated their income tax, but they didn't have a plan in place on how to account for the lost revenue into their state general fund. And our plan, we're doing it systematically over a period of time as we meet certain triggers or revenue uh, points, then we will eliminate the income tax by 0.5%. Although it's going to take a little bit longer to do it, the plan, I think, is working very well. We're meeting the revenue sources. The income tax is going down. It's eventually going to be eliminated, but it's also allowing us to not lose the revenue that the state depends on. So I think our plan shows that we it was well thought out, and it's working, and we can get to where we want to be. Now, whether it takes us 5 years, 10 years, that's to be seen. A lot of it depends on the economy and different variables. But overall, unlike Kansas, we did have a plan, or we put a plan in place that will account for the lost revenue. And with that comes like with the sales tax. If you're taking away part of your revenue source with the property or with the income tax, you've got to account for it. Well, we felt like the sales tax was the appropriate direction to go because not only uh, does everyone in the state have to pay sales tax, it will also uh, give us a larger pool of people paying into our revenue because people from out of state that would spend their money in Kentucky is going to have to pay sales tax. So that with that in the mix, it'll allow us to meet our revenue points sooner than later and help us reduce or eliminate the tax quicker and with more financial security while we do it.
Mark, it was announced just within the last few weeks that Kentucky did hit another benchmark, and that the state is in a position to reduce it another 0.5 percentage point. And do you expect this to be a priority issue when you reconvene in January 2025 to reduce it down officially to bring it down to 3.5%?
Yes, I do because when we passed the legislation to put the triggers in or put the statute in place that create the triggers, the statute dictates that if we meet the revenue source, then we reduce it by, and it'll be a priority because we want to be legislators or people of our word, and when we lobbied for it and we campaigned for it and we passed it, that was what we told the citizens of the Commonwealth. We meet the trigger points, then we will reduce it. So yeah, I do believe, and from what I've been told from over the interim, they're already making plans to have the legislation ready and to go, and I do think it'll be one of the top priorities right at the beginning of session.
Very good. Mark, you mentioned that out of the couple of things that you've been most proud of in your last 8 years serving as a state representative in Frankfort is on the pro-life issue. You mentioned Joe Fisher, who sponsored Kentucky's trigger bill back in 2019. And that bill said that if Roe v. Wade is ever overturned, abortion will be outlawed in the Commonwealth of Kentucky, except to save or preserve the mother's life. Where are your constituents today on that issue? Do you hear, are they happy that you supported that and that you're a pro-life candidate, or are you hearing otherwise? We hear on the national level in particular that this issue of the sanctity of life is hurting Republicans. What are you hearing in your district?
I think in my district, it's I think people view me as somebody being consistent with my word because I've campaigned from day one about being pro-life and supportive of these measures, and the fact that the measures was passed and put into place. I think people feel like I'm doing what I said I was going to do. But overall, the constituents in my district, they're for this type of legislation. They do feel like there needs to be an exception to save the mother's life or what have you. But they also feel like the unborn life needs to be protected just as well. So honestly, I've not gotten a lot of pushback or criticism for any of it. I think people are very satisfied with what we did. But there's always that exception. My hardcore Democrats that are in my district, that they've always got a comment about it. But sometimes I think they comment about that because sometimes that's the low hanging fruit when you're trying to attack somebody in the opposite party.
Kentucky is at a crossroads. We can choose to give in to the radical left, or we can choose to engage the culture in a God-honoring way.
I started the Commonwealth Policy Center because I believe that Christians have a responsibility to influence government and society to the glory of God. While the Commonwealth Policy Center's made a significant impact, our work isn't finished. If you'd like to join our movement working for timeless values, then head to our website.
To learn more, go to commonwealthpolicycenter.org.
Very good. If you are just joining us, you are tuned into the Commonwealth Policy Center's Candidate Forum. I'm Richard Nelson, here with State Representative Mark Hart of District 78. Mark, I wanted to just press on the abortion issue just a little further. The Democrats made this a primary issue at their national convention recently. And this exceptions, you brought up exceptions. Kentucky does have an exceptions rule for women whose lives are threatened if in any number of ways. So there is an exception to abortion there. One of your colleagues this last session introduced a bill that would have allowed rape or incest exceptions. Is this something that you've taken a stand on?
I looked at the legislation last year. I think I've taken a stand on it because I believe in protecting life. And when we heard the debates in committee when these bills were being passed, we got to listen. We had a lady that testified that was she survived unaborted or failed abortion. And with her testimony, and I've had the opportunity to talk to one other person, not in committee, but on a one-on-one in my office, that survived a rape situation. She was and when you listen to their stories and you see what productive, successful lives they have, I'm not. There needs to be an exception if you're trying to save the life of the mother for medical reasons like that. But outside of that, I don't. I mean, I'm firm. I got a firm base in my Christian faith, and I believe God does things for a reason. And when I heard these testimonies from these two individuals, I mean, it solidifies and it just confirms everything I believe, because they've not had they've had really nice lives. They were adopted and brought up by loving parents, and they met a void in their adoptive parents' lives. I just think there's so many other ways, but I think life needs to be protected, period, whether unborn or not. So.
Very good. Challenging issue. I appreciate your candor in your response to that. Mark, let's do a lightning round if we could. I'm looking at your responses to that's not your responses. These are just some of the questions we had on our candidate survey. We sent this out to every legislative candidate in both political parties. And what I'd like to do is go down the list and just say to you the statement, and you just simply respond yes or no.
Okay.
If we could. Okay. So first question, should government cut spending before trying to raise taxes?
Yes.
Should the government fully fund early childhood education?
No.
Okay. State-sponsored gambling expansion, should it be expanded in Kentucky?
No.
Recreational marijuana, should we introduce this in Kentucky?
No.
Okay. Transgender males, biological males who identify as females, should they be allowed to use the girls' bathrooms, restrooms, or join girls' sports teams in public schools?
No.
Should doctors be allowed to prescribe puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones and remove healthy genitals of gender for gender transition of gender dysphoric minors?
No.
Should inherently racist concepts like DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, should those be implemented at our public schools, whether K through 12 or higher ed?
No.
Should Kentucky colleges and universities ensure that political viewpoints are not discriminated against in hiring for faculty purposes?
Yes.
Okay. And should state laws be reformed to make it easier for healthcare providers to open in communities so there can be more options for patients? And that's in reference to reforming Kentucky's Certificate of Need law.
Yes.
Okay. Very good. Thank you for doing the lightning round, Mark. That was covered a lot of ground in a very short period of time. Are these issues, by the way, that, or let me ask it this way. What other issues are you hearing from your constituency that I might not have mentioned? What's on their mind? What are their areas of concern? What are they talking about as you go out to the different events and meet voters across the state, across your district?
I think you've hit all the biggies, but like up in northern Kentucky, one of the big issues is the congestion with on the interstates and highways. There's some plans in the works and some projects underway that could help alleviate a lot of the traffic or the commuter traffic coming into northern Kentucky. So that's a big issue, especially in Campbell County. I'll be honest with you. Right now, the big question on everybody's mind is the president. I hear people want to talk about the presidential race more than anything, and of course we know all the issues with that. But I think you've touched on everything. But I think in my area, the one other thing would be the traffic issue with the congestion on 71, 75. And looking for alternative ways for people in Kenton, Campbell, Boone, and the rest of Kentucky to commute north.
Yeah, very good. Mark, we are running out of time for this candidate forum. Here's my last question, and then I'm going to give you a minute to make an appeal to the voters and tell them why you think you should be reelected for a fifth term. Here's the question. If you are reelected to serve for another 2-year term in the Kentucky State House, what do you plan to accomplish? Do you have any particular legislation or certain things that you'd like to get passed?
Well, one of the things I want to see to its end and its fruition is the elimination of the state income tax. That was something I campaigned early on, so I will be supportive of that. In a lot of the area, especially with Pendleton County and the southern portions of the counties that I represent a lot of the farmers or the rural areas. And I don't have any particular legislation in mind, but I want to help create or work to enhance or better facilitate more opportunities and more expanses of our agribusiness and the economy for our farmers and our business owners that work in the agriculture industry. That's just something. I grew up in a farming area. I've got a kinship to the farmers, and I want to continue to work towards that. And I guess legislative wise, the one bill that I've been trying for the last 7 years to get passed is I would like to create the opportunity for local governments and water districts to decide whether or not they want to fluoridate their water. So that'll be something that I will be continue to work on. But other than that, I will continue to serve on the A&R committee and help work on the budgets. And I am co-chairman of the Government Contract Review Committee, which gives us an opportunity to review all the contracts and the money being spent. The way the committee is currently set up statutorily, we don't have a lot of teeth in the game. When we disapprove a contract, we can lodge our objections and stuff, but it can be overridden. I've been working on some legislation, passed the bill last session that's currently tied up in the courts that would give the Government Contract Review Committee a little bit more teeth so that when we do disapprove a contract, it means something other than us just making a political statement. So I'll continue to work on that issue as well.
Very good. Mark, you've got the last minute to make an appeal to the voters in House District 78. Again, Mark Hart, Republican state representative in House District 78. Go ahead. You got the last 60 seconds.
Thank you so much. I just like to everybody, when you go to the polls, just consider who's representing you. And my opponent, he's refused to put his position out there. He's refused to participate in any type of debate or forum. It's really hard to vote for somebody if you don't know where they stand. I'm trying to be open, honest, and let you all know where I stand. I'm an open book. If you want to contact me and learn more, feel free. But I've been there almost 8 years. I've got proven leadership. I've got proven voting record. I think I stand by what I say, and I'm a legislator to where if I commit to something, you're going to see me follow through with it. So with taking all that into consideration, I do believe I'm the best choice for this district. And besides, I want to continue to serve the people that I've come to love, not only in the Commonwealth, but in my new district.
Very good. Mark Hart, State Representative for House District 78. Thank you so much for joining us on this forum. And thank all of you for tuning in. Don't forget to vote. Tuesday, November the 5th is Election Day. Early voting starts on Thursday, November the 1st. Make sure that you get out and vote.